We're 3 games into the regular season, and doesn't it sort of feel like with Syracuse, we're watching a pretty similar team compared to last year, just with entirely different personnel? The offense is really good, just like it was in 2024. The special teams have actually been upgraded significantly. That's a nice change. But the defense is still a massive question mark for this team in 2025. Syracuse, right now, through 3 games, allows nearly 440 total yards per game. And that's including the Colgate performance where they allowed over 400 total yards. That is the second worst in the ACC. They are only ahead of Virginia Tech, a team that just fired their head coach in Brent Pry, and thank goodness they fired Brent Pry because he stinks, quite frankly, and Virginia Tech is a proud program that deserves to be a lot better than what they are. You'll hear that. You'll hear more about that in my takes on that in ACC Squad this week. But that's it with Syracuse right now on defense. They are only ahead of a team that currently does not have a head coach. I'm recording this at 3:16 p.m. Eastern on Monday, September 15th. Maybe that changes with Virginia Tech in the near future. But for now, they don't seem to have a head coach because they just fired one. So what are the concerns with the Syracuse defense? And feel free to comment right now in the comments section below your concerns about the Syracuse defense, or if you're not concerned at all with this Syracuse defense. I have 2 of them. The first one is the pass rush of Syracuse football, or really what I should say is lack thereof with pass rush. Last year, Syracuse football had one player who could consistently get to the quarterback, and that was Fidel Diggs, who had a career season with 7.5 sacks, and he parlayed that into being a 7th-round NFL draft pick. He was really good for Syracuse football, arguably the Orange's best defender a year ago, but now he's in the National Football League. He's not there. And so now this season, Syracuse football has 0 players, quite frankly, that can consistently get to the quarterback. They have 3 players this year who have recorded a sack, and each of these players have just 1 sack through 3 games. Are you ready for these 3 players? You got Raheem Long, who is a defensive back. You got Jamie Tremble, a converted tight end, who did play some linebacker in high school too, should mention that. And Kevin Jobity. Okay, he's an actual defensive lineman. Where's David Reese? Where is George Rooks? Where's David O? I do not know. Where's Dennis Jaquez? Where is the pass rush of Syracuse football right now? Because look, we're going to talk about Clemson starting tomorrow, and I know they're down right now. I know they're struggling right now, and I know that their quarterback, and Cade Klubnik in particular, seems off to start the season. That being said, they are still the Clemson Tigers. Cade Klubnik last year had a Heisman caliber season, and many people were expecting that he could have another Heisman caliber season in 2025. If Syracuse football cannot get in Cade Klubnik's face on Saturday, do you really think they're going to have much of a chance at an upset? Don't let the game on Saturday be the game where Cade Klubnik finally gets hot for Clemson and could potentially turn their entire season around. This pass rush has got to step up, and it has to start on Saturday at noon against Clemson. And I know that Syracuse's pass defense statistically is not great, but I think a lot of that is because these quarterbacks, they have a ton of time. And when you give Division I quarterbacks time to throw the football and to make plays, well, guess what? There are Division I football players for a reason. They're going to make plays. This pass rush has got to be better, or else Syracuse is in trouble on defense. There's no Fidel Diggs to bail him out now. It's on the current personnel. Number 2, stopping the run for Syracuse football. That has been Syracuse's bugaboo over the past couple of seasons. So, yeah, you can't really get to the quarterback. and you can't really stop the run. So far through 3 games, Syracuse has allowed 165 rush yards per game. That is only ahead of Virginia Tech in the ACC. It's not good company. And all 3 of Syracuse's opponents this season, Tennessee, UConn, Colgate, they have each gained at least 100 yards on the ground against Syracuse. It's one thing when Tennessee goes crazy with their ground game against Syracuse. It's another thing when you have UConn, who I think in that game ran for 165 yards. And you have Colgate running for over 100 yards. The run defense hasn't particularly been good either. And in the Elijah Robinson era, who is the defensive coordinator of Syracuse, he arrived same year as Fran Brown. Fran Brown got to Syracuse. He hired Jeff Nixon as the offensive coordinator, and his defensive coordinator hire was Elijah Robinson. Syracuse has had a ton of issues in trying to stop the run. Very rarely have they actually been able to stop it. More often than not, it's can they at least contain it? Because only twice through now 16 games in the Elijah Robinson era has Syracuse held a team under 100 yards rushing. Those teams, last year versus Holy Cross, an FCS opponent, and Pitt, surprisingly, was held under 100 yards last year. But if you remember that game, you remember it being a complete annihilation, and we don't really need to talk about that game anymore. Those are the only 2 games. Most of the time, it's just hope they can contain the run, not stop it. And ironically, the best run defense performance by Syracuse in the 16 games in the Elijah Robinson era was against a team who could probably run for 300 yards tomorrow against this Syracuse run defense. And the Syracuse run defense of last year, Georgia Tech, week 2 of last year. That was a phenomenal performance by this defensive line and these linebackers. I get different personnel, but it's the same issue as what it was last year with stopping the run. Ironically, the Georgia Tech team was their best performance. Maybe they can step up when they play Georgia Tech this year, although it won't be particularly easy. Of course, there are also fundamentals that bleed into some of the larger issues with Syracuse's defense right now. Tackling is a big concern. I don't love Elijah Robinson's play calling a lot, particularly on 3rd and long situations. Why he continues to rush 3 and drop 8 in coverage, I don't know. It has very rarely worked since he has gotten here. But at the end of the day, if your team and your personnel can't get to the quarterback and they also have trouble stopping the run, it's very, very difficult to have a good defense. And so for Saturday and for the rest of the ACC slate, this defense is going to have to be better than what we have seen through 3 games this season.